Burnout. It's a term we hear a lot, but do we really understand the impact of it? Maybe you've been burnt out in the past, but it could also be that you're managing people, mentoring people, or coaching someone who has experienced burnout, is experiencing it now, is blocked by it, and needs your help. How can you help? Well, let me break down some key points that I've learned in my 40 plus years of being a manager, a mentor, and a coach. When people are experiencing burnout, they may not recognize it themselves, they may not ask for help, and it may take your influence to help them slow down, assess, and address whatever it is causing that burnout. The first thing we need to be able to do is understand that we're seeing someone in a burnout state. Burnout often goes unnoticed, so let's talk about the things to watch for. Emotional exhaustion. If your mentee or coachee says they feel constantly tired, overwhelmed, or stuck. Declining performance. If someone's normal, great performance has suddenly taken a big downturn, they miss deadlines, and they struggle with focus and motivation. It seems like they don't even care about the job anymore. Physical symptoms. If you hear someone talking about constant headaches, back pain, those physical symptoms could be the sign of extreme burnout. This can also include something more subtle, like changing energy levels. When someone generally is up and positive and has a lot of energy to take on new tasks, but they seem suddenly exhausted by even the most simple things and having difficulty coping, these are also signs of burnout. A negative outlook. Someone who's generally got either a rosy or a neutral attitude suddenly becomes super critical, can only see the negative, maybe even is more difficult to work with than they were before. Withdrawal. People who begin to show in their body language, in their words, and in their eye contact that they don't want to be there. They don't make eye contact, they try to withdraw, and they even turn their arms in and try to keep their head down at work. These are signs of possibly someone who's going through a hard time or even reaching burnout. So the question is, how can we help someone who's reached that point of feeling burned out? If you recognize any of the signs we've just gone through, the next step is to address the burnout with empathy and action. Start the conversation. The first thing you can do is just check in with that person. Start an open and easy conversation. Just ask them how they're doing and see what kind of a reaction you get. Use open-ended questions like, how have you been feeling? How's your work going? Or even something simple and open like, is everything okay? Make sure you do this in private and what they feel is a safe space so they really can open up. Don't do it when you're both busy. And don't do it when colleagues are looking on. And when you're asking someone to open up to something that may be really hard for them to talk about, always having a fresh bottle of water and a box of Kleenex can be really handy. Self-reflection. Once you've started that conversation and things are starting to come out, this is a moment when they can talk about what's happening with them, but also reflect on what is the root cause. I've had people who felt completely burnt out because they felt overwhelmed by their workload. And just letting them reflect on the work itself and helping them understand prioritization skills, but not doing the prioritization for them, help them feel more under control and lessen that sense of burnout. And don't forget, some of the stress can be managed just by talking it out. Adjusting goals and workloads. Sometimes you can see they're legitimately overwhelmed because the work is too much or maybe they're too new to the job. Whatever the reason, sometimes it's best to take a little work off their plate and reallocate it, or figure out if it's not all priority work, that some of it can just wait until they feel a little bit more under control. Oftentimes, as managers and coaches, we know the work in terms of what needs to be delivered this month can make a huge impact to their stress and burnout. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Offer resources. It could be that the burnout is a headspace issue. So you can offer resources like Calm, which you can get free on YouTube, or even download the app. I suffer with lack of sleep, and I can tell you, it can mess with your headspace. So I have found tools on YouTube are really helpful to calming my mind, calm my nerves, and focus on solving my problems. And related to that, encourage rest. If someone's working 12 hours a day, no wonder they're burnt out. They're also exhausted. And you know, if you feel that way, your ability to cope, manage problems, and deal with your own stress and behavior, You can be stuck. You can get so burned out you can't find a way out of it. Someone you're coaching may need enough help just to know 12-hour days may be necessary some of the time. I certainly have lived through that cycle of my life, but it's not sustainable. And people who try to pretend it is are headed for burnout. And sometimes that can be a burnout that becomes very difficult to come back from. So be a role model and a champion for rest, which isn't just sleep, it's also downtime. It's also doing something energizing and fun. It's taking up a hobby. It's doing whatever you need to reinvigorate your joy for life. I've talked about what a burnout is and some of the things you can do with the person you're trying to help, but also be aware that there is a process to burnout. It's a process that isn't necessarily a straight line from bad to good. It might be a roller coaster ride of emotions and issues that need to be solved on a lot of levels. So give yourself time to work with that person and give that person time to work with themselves. Let them know that failure isn't the failure to act. It's the failure to listen to themselves and get help. So if you've had a great conversation, you've organized some of the workload issues, and you've encouraged them to get rest, all the things are kind of green lights at this point. That's great, but don't forget to check in regularly and keep it real. If they're having a bad day or a bad week, let them talk it through. This may be a setback or it could be a breakthrough. Celebrate the small wins. When they do notice they're tired and can act on alleviating it in some way, that is a breakthrough. So celebrate that with them and be a role model. Share your experiences and show your empathy for theirs. Everyone experiences life differently, and they're not going to be a mirror of you, and then your solutions are not going to be necessarily their solutions. So showing empathy without judging is really important to the human side of all of this. And if you're a leader of a team, when work systems seem broken and it's spiraling out of control and more people are facing burnout, handle it not as a problem they need to solve, but a problem your business needs to solve. And if you've got mental health people available to your team through HR, be sure and make sure people know what those options are and how to get that kind of help. And finally, know your limits. I'm not a therapist, and I don't pretend to be. When people need help outside of the company's boundaries, encourage them to find that help. Burnout is a reality we can't ignore. It's a human condition that hits us more than we think. It also is a kind of pandemic in today's society. Mental health issues often start with burnout, but with awareness, empathy, and action, we can guide those in our care and help them recover. And if you want to know more about the power of coaching and mentoring, check out these videos. I hope you found this information helpful. If you did, please give the video a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you next time on ProjectSkillsMentor.com.